The Russian Federation is launching an oil-backed cryptocurrency, or at least exploring the possibility of launching such a cryptocurrency. And I know what you're thinking. This is what we've all been waiting for. Finally, another cryptocurrency backed by a depleting, unsustainable, environmentally destructive resource. I know, so exciting, right? Anyway, we're going to be breaking down this story in some more depth for you, but before we do jump into that, just a quick shout out that the guys over at Nash.io, the Nash exchange, formerly known as NEX or the Neon Exchange, are taking pre-registrations for their exchange, what is promising to be one of the hottest decentralized exchanges in cryptoland. To inspire people to come and get signed up, they're giving away $100,000 worth of Bitcoin and 46,000 NEX tokens. There's a link down below if you want to get signed up. Now, on to our Russia story. Now, the Russian State Duma, or the lower house of the Federal Assembly of Russia, plans to review and adopt new cryptocurrency regulations in March. Oleg Nikolaev, a member of the State Duma Committee of Economic Policy, said that the Russian Assembly House had led cryptocurrency regulations to its final stage, in contrast to the Russian Central Bank's conservative stance on Bitcoin and other virtual currencies. The aim is to make Russia a friendly place for crypto assets and for crypto businesses. Another skeptical central bank? I'm so surprised, said no one. I am though happy to see that there is this regulation being pushed forward in Russia to help make Russia a more crypto-friendly place. I know we've been back and forth on what's Russia gonna do with the crypto scene. So let's actually see these new rules get signed into law. That would be supremely awesome. But that's not what you came for. That's a nice little addition to the story on the current state of regulation in crypto in Russia. But what you came for is the Russian petro coin. Now, the former energy minister, Igor Yusufov, is also proposing an oil-backed cryptocurrency. It's really important at this stage to note that this is just a proposal. This is not something that has been officially adopted by the Russian government or by Gazprom or any other oil producers within the country. Just a proposal at the moment. We'll have to see how this actually plays out, but considering that he is the former energy minister, I would take this proposal very seriously indeed. Yusufov reportedly said that the introduction of a crypto settlement system on the energy market could allow for the avoidance of costs associated with the use of not backed up currencies and the fluctuations of their exchange rates. He also cites savings on currency exchange commissions and trade restrictions as other examples of advantages that the proposed system could bring. Now, at this stage, there is no talk of it going as far as the petro did and being some kind of standard currency for pensions and things like that within Venezuela, the Venezuelan petro, of course, in this situation. It seems that the primary goal of the Russian petroleum-backed coin is primarily to make Gazprom and other oil giants in Russia more money by increasing efficiency and, most importantly, to help them avoid sanctions. And this is becoming a massive potential use case for cryptocurrencies. I'd love to see them just using Bitcoin to do international settlements. We have seen some international settlements happen. One of those was actually between Russia and Turkey, settling 3,000 tons of wheat using Bitcoin. It'd be great to see oil being sold for Bitcoin. That would be the next step in the evolution, but they're not going that direction. They are making their own cryptocurrency. But the ability to avoid sanctions is very, very powerful part of blockchain technology. You can agree or disagree with the politics behind the sanctions, but the reality is that crypto is a tool to help avoid that. The construction of the project's roadmap is reportedly almost at the final stage. There is no word yet on what blockchain this will be running on, but my guess is that it would either be a private version of Ethereum. Remember that Cyberbank, Russia's state-owned bank, is a member of the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, or it'll be running on the new version of Waves, Vostok. This is primarily designed for businesses, so we might see it running over there as well. Obviously, the guys at Waves do have some close relationships with different government sectors inside of Russia, But Ethereum does as well. My bet's on one of those two. They might surprise us though and make their own blockchain. Time will tell, I suppose. But this could be huge in terms of being able to sidestep US-led sanctions regimes. And you know what? I bet that as soon as the Russian petro coin gets launched, it is going to be immediately sanctioned by the United States regulators. Just in the same way that we saw the Venezuelan petro and the Iranian cryptocurrency immediately sanctioned by US regulators, this one's also going to be the case. Because just think about it. They killed Gaddafi for wanting to trade gold for oil. I mean, that is a big crime in of itself. They want to kill Maduro. In fact, Marco Rubio today tweeting out a picture of Gaddafi's dead body as some kind of insinuated threat to Maduro that we're going to come and kill you. The absurdity of the situation boggles my mind sometimes. And of course, we do have to remember that some of the worst war criminals in America are in charge of the operation, people like John Bolton. If you still really think that the US cares about humanitarian goals in Venezuela and not the oil, wake up. Because it is definitely not the case. But the hungry people in Venezuela, Lark. Well, that's terrible. It's an absolutely terrible situation to see what is going on in Venezuela. People are hungry, and that is horrible. And hungry Venezuelans need help. They need aid, but they don't need political stunts. They don't need weapons. They don't need to have their government overthrown. Some fun facts for you, by the way. Population of Venezuela is 32 million people. And we have to assume that not every single one of those 32 million people is hungry. Maybe half of them are hungry, let's say. Well, there are 40 million people in the United States struggling with hunger every day. Those people would probably love some kind of aid. And that includes more than 12 million American children that go hungry every day. But that's cool, right? Those are hungry capitalists. They just haven't pulled themselves up by the bootstraps enough to go down to the supermarket that's full of food. Not like those hungry socialists in their empty supermarkets, are they? Big difference, right? But hey, you know what? Maybe it's America's a bigger country, so, as a percentage, it's kind of like there's less people that are hungry in America versus Venezuela. Well, if it's about percentages of population that are hungry, then I hope that you really care about Yemen, because around 66% of its population is facing extreme food shortages. But instead of caring about delivering humanitarian aid there, the Western powers are backing Saudi Arabia, selling Saudi Arabia the weapons needed to continue the blockade and the famine and the genocide going on in Yemen. But they're Islamic hungry people, so they don't really matter. It's not like, Venezuelan socialist hungry people. They're the ones that really, really matter. Nobody should be hungry anywhere. But the hypocrisy of these situations really, really stink. Because you know what? Those silly Yemenis should not have built their country on a place that didn't have oil. Otherwise, somebody might have been more concerned about their hunger. Then we have Iran. This is Saudi Arabia's mortal enemy. And unsurprisingly, of course, just like Libya having massive oil reserves and Venezuela having the world's largest oil reserves, Iran has a lot of oil. And their cryptocurrency also came under immediate US sanctions to add to the already crippling US sanctions enforced at the bank level on Iran. Now that brings us over to Russia. Many key sanctions have attacked the Russian oil industry specifically, as well as the Russian government's ability to access the international financial system. And of course, Russia is also one of the world's biggest producers of oil and natural gas. But this is all just a coincidence, right? It just happens to be some crazy coincidence that some of the world's biggest countries in terms of proven reserves happen to also be America's biggest enemies. Let's look at the top 10 countries in terms of proven oil reserves. Number 1, Venezuela. Number 2, Saudi Arabia, Canada, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, the UAE, Russia, Libya, and the USA. Well, one of those 10 countries is the USA. 5 of those countries host American military bases. 2 of them have been attacked and devastated by the United States, killing hundreds of thousands in Iraq and tens of thousands in Libya, as well as basically turning that country into some kind of dystopian hellhole. And 3 of those countries, Venezuela, Russia, and Iran, are all mortal enemies facing continual financial warfare, financial tyranny, sanctions, and threats of regime change. But hey, we're just talking about coincidences again, guys. You can't really, say that one thing is another. This is all just a big coincidence, not about the oil at all, right? There is a global war happening right now between the world's biggest oil producers. Saudi Arabia is like literally straight up taking their guidance from the Game of Thrones and how brutal they are in terms of not only internal power struggles in the country, but how they operate towards other countries, driving down the price of oil in order to make other countries go broke. There is also a currency war that is attached to the oil war because the dominance of the American petrodollar must reign supreme. Is there any mistake that the United States, the world's richest country, the richest country in the history of the world, it's absolutely insane that they lag so woefully behind many other nations in terms of adoption of renewable resources? One must question these things. These financial wars are deadly. Sanctions regimes kill, especially for the weaker countries. In Russia, for example, we haven't seen the sanctions killing people like it has in Venezuela, for example, and that's according to the UN's own reports that, yes, indeed, the sanctions in Venezuela have had a deadly effect. Sanctions in Iraq in the 90s had a deadly effect. This is financial warfare. But it doesn't get presented as financial warfare. It gets presented as serious people doing serious business. But that is not the case. Cutting someone out from the international financial system hurts. It has a real world impact. We have terribly corrupt governments and we have terrible corrupt organizations which enable these corrupt governments to continue their tyranny. Playing off of what happened to the Venezuelan petro, though, Russia is looking much more cautiously. They don't want to immediately fall under this difficulty like the Venezuelan petro did of being sanctioned. Even though they are going to be sanctioned, they don't want that to stop the adoption of their petro coin. So Russia is looking to expand its crypto oil project, but slowly at first. Yusufov said that they would first launch the crypto oil projects in the CIS countries. This move would minimize US interference in their plan. At the same time, it would allow the government to set up a framework first between the energy producers and consumers in the CIS region. The CIS countries are composed of Azerbaijan, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Armenia, Moldova, Russia, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan as an associate state. My final thoughts on this whole thing. I love the ability to evade sanctions because, as you've probably figured out by watching this channel now, I am diametrically opposed to financial tyranny in any form, and I am particularly opposed to military tyranny in any form. So I like the ability of the Russian oil-backed coin to evade sanctions. But you know what? Screw oil, man. Seriously. And screw Russia's oil coin. Russia's oil-heavy economy has been a big weakness strategically for the country because as the price of oil fell down, so did the government's coffers, so did the ability of the average Russian to have a good quality of life. It has had dire environmental impacts across the country and has fueled massive corruption, even if it has funded large amounts of social programs within Russia. It is time to move to the economy of the future and to ramp up renewables. But that's not going to happen with the massive corruption that happens at Gazprom and at the government level in Russia. And even though Russia is increasing its investments in renewables, it is under 5% of their total energy production compared to the United States, which has 18%, which is crushed by many countries in Europe that have 60, 70, or 80% of their production coming from renewables. Corruption of government in Russia, along with the massive influence of the oligarchs, is keeping the country tied to the energy of the past, and it's an absolute shame and a crime against the regular Russian people who need to have a better economy developed for their future. Anyway, just my two Soshis on Russia's oil-backed cryptocurrency. You guys let me know what you think about it down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching today's video. As always, I love you all. Don't trust your government, guys. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a thumbs up on it. You can subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. And of course, if you want to know when I put out a new video, hit that notification bell down below. Long live the blockchain, and peace out till next time.